G'day, legends. So Media Day has happened a few days out of UFC 308, and big claps for Khamzat Chimaev. He finally made it to a Media Day. Woo, good on the little puppy dog. He made it, mate. Yeah, it's a big move for Khamzat Chimaev. Good on him. Getting this close to weigh-in day, well done. No, look, I just wanted to bring something forward and look at it because there's always this push from the Khamzat Chimaev fans that he doesn't really get sick. Yeah, it was a one-off a few months ago when he was first booked in against Robert Whittaker in Saudi Arabia. That was a one-off. And to say that Khamzat Chimaev constantly gets sick and that he has a bad gas tank and that he has a bad immune system, that's completely unfair. In fact, quite often, Khamzat Chimaev fans like to turn it around and say that Robert Whittaker is the one that pulls the sickie and Robert Whittaker is the one that pulls out of fights. Completely untrue. Robert Whittaker used to get sick back in the day, but that was years ago, like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. Whereas Khamzat Chimaev has been getting consistently sick for the last 12 months. And during the media day, Khamzat Chimaev sat down and answered a few questions, and it solidifies what the entire MMA community has been saying about Khamzat up until this point. The guy's immune system is cooked, and his cardio is, or maybe was, is a better thing to say, was absolute trash. And I just want to say from the top here, right, that I hope that we get the most healthy version of Khamzat Chimaev that we can possibly get, right? I hope that Team Australia beats the living piss out of a peak Khamzat Chimaev. But the idea that the entire MMA community has just been making this up, or that this guy doesn't get sick, or that this guy doesn't have a good immune system, that we're just teasing him for no reason, is completely wrong. And he essentially proved that himself when they sat down and did this press conference today. He's also said in the past, very recently, that they moved his entire team, his entire camp, they moved it up to elevation in Russia to help with his own cardio issues. And in this press conference, he consistently reiterates that he has fixed his health issues and that people have been working with him, which proves that when the MMA community has been saying that this guy gets sick and pulls out of fights, they are not just pulling it out of thin air. They're not just whipping this shit out of their ass. He himself has admitted these things. So let's get straight into it, looking at some of the comments that Khamzat Chimaev made during the press conference day. Okay, firstly, we get this new Khamzat, this full head of hair Khamzat, this less aura Khamzat, right? The I smash everybody, brother, is gone and been replaced with this little boy, this little puppy dog Khamzat. Also, before we get into a bit of fun ribbing before a big old sports event, well done to Khamzat Chimaev, honestly, for his English. It's gotten way better, so seriously, good on him for that. There's a lot of UFC athletes that don't bother learning any English, but Khamzat clearly has, so good on him for that. Now, let's get straight into this. He is asked whether or not he thinks this fight against Robert Whittaker is going to line him up next for a title shot, right? Let's have a look at this and have a look at his answer.
I hope so, but they said that before as well. When I beat the Gilbert Burns, how long time was that? Some 2-3 years ago, man. I didn't fought my chance. After that, Usman, if he beats Usman, gonna fight for the title. Didn't fought yet, so we'll see. But I'm happy with the money. I'm making more money and any champion as well, man. So, yeah.
It's interesting what he says here, and it's something that Sean Strickland should really listen to, right? Dana White offered him a title shot after the Gilbert Burns fight. They said if he fought Kamaru Usman, he would get a title shot. And he didn't. Like, Dana White has said this 1,000 times to his fighters to try and get them to go out there and fight with a little bit of gusto, to try and get them going. The idea that Dana White promises you a title shot really doesn't mean anything until the contract is signed on the dotted line. And then he says, I don't really care if I get a title shot or not because I get paid more than any other champion. That is just not true, Khamzat. No, you do not. Number one, you don't get paid more than any other champion. You don't get paid more than Islam Makhachev. You certainly do not get paid more than John Jones, who got offered a phenomenal amount of money to stick around. You do not get paid more than DDP or Ilia Topuria, okay? I'm not saying that Khamzat Chimaev is a liar, but if he truly believes that he does get paid more than them, I have a crypto coin to sell him. It's called Smosh coin. It's going to really take off, Khamzat. You should buy it. If you really believe that, let's go for it. I don't want to accuse Khamzat of being a consistent liar, but Things are adding up here. Next up, he gets asked about how his new training team is going. And he says that it's actually the same team. They've just tried new things. They've moved it to a new camp, and they're now working with extra people that have come on board, people that have worked with athletes for the last 60 years. And it's the first time that he has had doctors and dietitians around him his entire training camp. Check this out.
Boxes, and I have my doctor around me, I have my dietitian around me, and the guy who checking my supplement, everything. I never had so much team around me, so would be a different Khamzat.
So he has had a dedicated team hanging around him consistently, working with him closely to make sure that his health is okay. They have added doctors to his team to try and manage his health. So hopefully when he gets in there, Robert Whittaker beats the absolute piss out of the best version of Khamzat Chimaev. Next, he gets asked if he is looking forward to showing off his new conditioning if Robert Whittaker survives the first 3 rounds. He sort of shrugs it off, but during that answer, he does point out that he's not one of those guys that just bounces around and tries to save his gas tank, right? He is one of those guys that goes out there and goes 100% early on. Again, this is another admission from Khamzat Chimaev himself, that he goes out there and goes as hard as he can as early as possible. So therefore, he does gas out during the fight because he goes too hard too early. He likes to fight in that style. Have a look.
I does with these guys, so I always fighting, I'm not that guy who is jumping around and trying to save my gas station, so I go always all in,
So when the MMA community is making fun of Khamzat Chimaev for always gassing out and not having a gas tank, he himself admits that he goes as hard as he can, as early as he can, right? This poor missus mustn't be a very long Saturday night for the bloke. Now we're coming up to one of the most interesting things to me, and sort of the reason that I wanted to sit down and bring this to you guys. He talks about how before the Usman fight, the day of the fight, he was the one that was getting sick, and he just didn't say anything about it to the MMA media. Have a look.
Yeah, well, so, but I didn't say anything about my health before Usman fight. Everyone thinks about Khamzat went in the cage healthy, so it wasn't that. I was sick on the morning before the fight, so don't find the excuse like don't crying like.
So again, by his own admission, about 12 months ago, he got sick just before the Usman fight, and he didn't want to say anything about it. Then he gets booked to fight Robert Whittaker in Saudi Arabia, overtrains, and gets sick. Now he's moved his entire training camp to a different elevation to try and work on his gas tank and bring doctors and dietitians in to try and figure out what is going on with him. The bloke consistently gets sick. It's not just a weird rumor that the MMA community has come up with.
We've been in the mountains, been doing training, and never been in I've been always in the city and just a normal gym train, So like now I was the Olympic Centrum, and they has everything there, doctors, everything, they're checking around and checking your body and all the things you need for the Olympic athletes, so they use it for me.
All of this comes in on top of the fact that his weight cut in the fight against Nate Diaz was going so poorly that a doctor from the UFC told him to stop the weight cut and that they were trying to rearrange the card on the back end, right? To me, all of this teasing that Khamzat Chimaev has gotten about not being able to show up on fight day and that he does have no gas tank is completely justified by his own admissions on what keeps happening to him in these situations. So just like how Robert Whittaker did used to get sick all the way back in the day, and he seems to have those problems sorted out over the last 5 years, I hope that Khamzat Chimaev and his new team have sorted out these health issues that he's clearly been dealing with consistently for at least the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, right? Consistently dealing with health issues from the Nate Diaz fight to the Kamaru Usman fight to the last Robert Whittaker fight in Saudi Arabia. I hope that they are cleared up by now, and it's not just a new haircut that we're getting from Khamzat Chimaev. I hope the new dietitian, the new doctors, everything has been working so that when we get him into the cage, the Aussies get him at his absolute best. And that way, when we beat him at his best. But to the fans of the puppy dog out there is still a day left until he actually makes the weight cut. And even he said he got sick the morning of the Kamaru Usman fight, which even though his opponent was changed on last minute, The date was not changed on the last minute. So he was still cutting weight all up until the exact same date. Just because the opponent changed didn't change his immune system or how his health was going. And it would still affected him going into the Kamaru Usman fight. So hopefully that has been fixed. Khamzat Chimaev fans, do not count your chickens until all the eggs have hatched, right? Let's wait for the actual weigh-ins to see how we go, and then let's get it. But all of this idea that Khamzat Chimaev has been treated unfairly and these rumors that he just gets it, that's all complete BS, all right? That is all completely blown out of the water by his own team, all right? His team knows that he has cardio issues. His team knows that he has health issues, and I feel bad for the guy, I really do. However, with all of that going on, and it always sucks to say, you know, a yeah, but at the end of a sentence, but I do feel bad for the guy. But the MMA fan in me, right, does not want a UFC champion that cannot consistently show up to compete 2 to 3 times a year. If Khamzat Chimaev does beat Robert Whittaker, which is just the slimmest chance in hell, there's a 1% chance he beats Robert Whittaker. But if he does, and he goes on to compete against DDP and somehow wins that fight as well, I don't want him to be champion. I don't want someone who is constantly getting sick being champion, that we constantly have to worry about whether or not they're going to make the weight. That's not fun for an MMA fan. That's very, very bloody stressful, mate. But we'll see what happens. There we go. We can now put the idea that anti-Khamzat fans are just making fun of him for no reason to bed. There is 1 day left to go. Let's hope that poor old Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev can actually show up for the fight. And when they do, let's see what happens once we get Khamzat Chimaev through that first round, which he himself admits he goes too hard during. And let's see how Robert Whittaker drags him into the deep waters and absolutely pieces him up. Khamzat Chimaev wins the first round. Robert Whittaker wins the last 4 rounds. It's probably a 10-8 in the last round from Robert Whittaker, because Khamzat Chimaev is so bloody gassed, mate. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let me know, do you think Khamzat Chimaev is going to win? Who do you have in that fight? If you are already on board with the channel, go ahead and hit that like button. And until then, I will see you guys in the next video. You have yourselves a great day.